It is episode 5 already, somehow, of the Workplace Wanderer. I am I'm having so much fun doing this. It's to me, this is my favorite topic to discuss. Workplace, organizational issues, wellness. I love having this conversation. It's all just so fascinating to me. So this has been such a cool experience. And I have a feeling that experience is going to continue today. I have an awesome guest here with me today that I believe we officially met, or sort of our paths have crossed in some way in 2019. And we lost contact there for a little bit, thanks to the pandemic, probably. But I'm so happy to reconnect you. Today I have Allison Stark on the podcast / LinkedIn Live to discuss the no one size fits all approach to global wellness. Hi, Allison.
Hi, Blake. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so pumped to have you. Do you want to give a quick background of yourself and your experience and your work history?
Yeah, sure. I've been in the HR benefit space for the entirety of my career. So, I'll give away my age. That's 20 plus years. And various aspects of benefits, both in the US, domestically, and globally as well. And after so many years in kind of the administration space, the consulting space, I finally landed where I think I should be about 6 years ago. I work at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and I lead our global wellness programs. And we have, 60,000 team members across 55 plus countries. And I'm honored that I get to lead all of the wellness offerings that we offer to our team members as well as their families. So it's not only something that I love about my job, but I'm personally passionate about all aspects of wellness. So it's great to be able to tie the two together and really see the difference that an employer can make in the lives of their team members.
I like the number of 60,000 employees, and then also thinking across all these different cultures and globally of how you can possibly manage this. And then you just added their family piece in as well. I mean, do you think that that puts you probably near like 500,000 people overall together, right? I mean, that's a number I'm pulling out of nowhere, but between the employee and the family, that's a lot of people.
It is a lot of people. And even on top of family, we do extend some of our benefits to any member of the household. So maybe you're a caretaker of a parent or an aunt or a cousin. Some of our benefits extend to those members of the household as well. So, yeah, it's a very large number.
The anxiety that I feel thinking about your job, of just all the different little pieces that you have to manage. I imagine you probably have a pretty good team that helps out as well.
We have a very small but mighty team, believe it or
Mhm.
not. So myself and two team members, one who just went on maternity leave. So we're lean, but we're very very effective in what we do, and we leverage our partners across communication. And some other areas to really bring our robust programming to all of our team members. So it's a lot of fun. It's great. We're grateful that we enjoy what we do because it's a lot of hard work, but loving it makes it so easy.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to, I would say, in this
Mhm.
this type of role. You really have to love what you do and know that you're making a difference in people's lives.
Absolutely.
I think I can relate to that in a lot of senses of sort of that's why that I got into the work that we do today, and the work that I'm aiming to do more in the future with organizations is just understanding if we can make a difference in one person's life, it's also not just affecting that one person, but it's affecting everybody who's close to them and the people around them, their coworkers, their family. So we know if we're making a difference, it's just a butterfly effects out, and we can affect so many lives and such positive change in a great direction. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate that passion. Um, so before we jump in completely to the topic, I do want to kind of get to know you a little bit better. So we have something here we call the cards of progress. And let's see, can I get it? There we go. That'll glare. The cards of progress are a deck of 32 cards that I designed probably about a year ago now. That it's 32 different questions that force us to think a little bit more introspectively, to dig a little bit deeper than the how are you question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a card at random. So I'll actually let you pick which end of the deck you want me to go. So we'll call this, I'm assuming this is your right, right?
Uh-huh.
Right, middle, left. Which would you like?
Let's go from the left.
Okay. So this is to prove to everybody this is random. Um, ooh. It's funny. This is the one card that when I wrote it, I'm like, I don't know how I would ever answer this.
Oh,
And,
great. No pressure, Blake. Come on.
and yeah, I know. And of all the times that I've used this deck, this is the one card that's also never come up that I'm like, thank God I avoided it. So I guess we're finally here. The question is lion or gazelle? Which one are you today?
Ooh, that is a tough one because I definitely embody aspects of both. I would say right now I'm feeling fierce. I'm feeling the lion in me.
Okay. Well, I like it. Um, I relate to your answer, lion or gazelle. I feel both at times. I kind of, the way that my mind interprets it is leader or follower. And I think there is a negative connotation that sometimes goes along with follower, that if you're following, that means that you're just a kind of another sheep in the pack. And there's a lot of negative talk about that, but I do think it's okay to follow once in a while. So I would say I am half lion, half gazelle. I do like to follow and learn from people who have a greater understanding of certain topics than I do, and really be that forever learner that I strive to be. But at the same time, I really do like to go after my goals in my way, and try to be a leader, and come from really follow my core values and my passions, and really go after them as well. So I'm going to say both.
I mean, I think that's great. It's a balance, right? You got to
Right.
know when to lead, when to follow. And I love, how you kind of explain that as I want to follow along people that, may have knowledge that I don't so that I can learn from them. And that's, definitely appropriate at many times. And you can transition from that follower in that space to, the lion, the leader as well. So it's all about the journey.
No, that's a good point. I mean, it's obviously in the animal world, you can't go from a gazelle to a lion. But I do think in our world, you couldn't go from a gazelle to a lion, where eventually, and I think the goal of any good leader is to create another leader. So it's
Agree.
ultimately, as a gazelle, we sit, we learn, we watch, we follow until we're ready to lead and teach. So
Absolutely. I love these questions.
do you want to do another one?
No, I don't. I'm scared. I'm scared I'll get another card that hasn't been done yet. You'll put me on the spot. No, but I love that. And that's actually something, people leaders, managers could think about incorporating into, all team member meetings, status meetings is pull a card from the deck. And lots of times, in big environments, people aren't comfortable speaking up, or they need a thought starter to get the conversation going. And this would be a really fun thing to do on a team meeting, just to hear different perspectives, especially when you're working in a global environment. You have team members all over the world, coming together on a call. You never know what perspectives you're going to get. This would be I recommend this as a fun team game.
Yeah, it's funny. I have found, thank you, first of all, but I've found that this type of conversation just brings down the walls, right? And
Yeah.
it's a good icebreaker, first of all, but it brings down the walls. And I've seen it work in large group rooms, and I've seen it work one-on-one with individual clients,
Yeah.
and there's one in particular that I was having really, there's a big age difference between us, and we were having trouble connecting on a vulnerable level. And um, they were they struggle a lot with self-esteem. And so they were for some reason, putting me on a pedestal of somebody who has their life together and has done all these things and all these years. And the cards actually leveled the playing field, where we both were able to share vulnerabilities, both able to express insecurities that we have, or strengths that we have, or goals that we're shooting for. And we're able to realize that there was a lot more commonalities than we thought originally. And all of a sudden, every conversation since has just been so fluid and open and much more comfortable.
I love that. That's a great application. I don't know if that was a surprise or not, that that's what unfolded in that conversation, but I could definitely see that happening and being really valuable.
It's probably bad for me to admit this, but I honestly brought the cards because I had no idea where to go with this client at this point. So I was like, I just need something to do. I grabbed him on the way out of the door and just said, well, we're going to give this a shot. With
I love
no,
it.
I did not have the intention of what the results were in mind. I just like, let's give us something to talk about because it was really falling stagnant for a while.
It's awesome.
So you've been doing this, you mentioned about 6 years, correct?
Mhm.
You've been in this role for 6 years, or you've been with Hewlett-Packard?
So I've been with HPE for almost 8 years now, but specific to the global wellness role for about the last six.
Okay, so how does one, and what were you doing before the global wellness role?
So before that, I was just doing a lot of US specific work around US specific benefit programs that, a lot of us are familiar with as US employees. For anyone that's listening from the US, things like medical, dental, vision, smaller niche kind of wellness programs, meditation apps. Managing an on site health clinic and on site EAP clinicians, kind of a lot of stuff just really specific to the US.
Okay.
And the global wellness role didn't really exist as an official role at the time that I moved into it. We had a global wellness program, but not a full you know strategy, a pillared approach, and things that were scaled globally to team members across all the countries. So I was really excited to kind of move in that role, build our strategy across the board, and really fill out the offering
Hmm.
to reflect global opportunities. There were definitely, countries that had wellness components in place, but they were very localized, and we really wanted to, bring it up to a higher level and find resources and vendors and programs that we could share with all of our team members, no matter what country they were in, so that we could have that global conversation and we could all connect through those programs, no matter where were located.
So yeah, that's fascinating, and I have a zillion questions. So this is interesting for me because this is one of the topics that I really don't know much about, and I understand it on a global level, but I don't necessarily understand or know how the implementation of something like this happens outside of a few cultural competency classes I've taken and some global leadership classes that I've taken while I was getting my master's. I don't necessarily understand how this works. So it's incredible that you transitioned from that. What was that transition like for you going from US based to then globally? I mean, what type of challenges popped up for you in that process of trying to expand the services?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of components to take into consideration when you're talking about um, a global offering, really of any kind within an organization, because there's so many nuances, not only in where you're geographically located, but cultural differences. Um, Verbiage differences, even things as simple as, if you're branding a program or putting imagery around program, let's say in communications, you have to be really thoughtful about what you're visually representing, because something that may feel comfortable to us in the US could be actually offensive in another culture. So,
Hmm.
thinking about even the visual presentation of your program is really important. Um, and, there's this other concept that I've been researching recently around wellness privilege. And I don't know if you've, you know, had a chance to look into any of that, but let me just give you an example. If maybe you're encouraging your team members to be physically active and you're giving them suggestions like during your lunch break, take an hour, walk around your neighborhood, we're making an assumption that, people are in a safe environment, that they have access to sidewalks, that there's lighting on their street, that, all of those things, a lot of us take for granted. And it's really something when you look globally, you have to take a step back and say that may not be available for people. That could be a real challenge for people. They may not feel safe going and walking outside in their neighborhood. So, what could we offer them instead? What would be a good alternative? So, keeping those kind of variables in mind whenever we're evaluating a new offering, a new vendor, a new program, is also something that really comes into play for us as well.
Right. So I mean, that's very interesting. So you have to then make considerations for each, I guess, corner of the world that you're talking to, right? And you're sending this to. It might help for me also to understand a little bit of what is wellness. It's sort of an all-encompassing term. So I've saw online and some of the stuff that we've discussed together that it's physical, mental, financial, and am I missing something? It's covering.
Community well-being is our
Yeah.
fourth pillar of our program.
Okay.
Yeah. So like many organizations, there are foundational pillars to our overall wellness program and you mentioned them there. So physical health, mental and emotional health, financial well-being, and for us community well-being, which a lot of organizations you might hear call social well-being. So very similar in its goal of really allowing our team members to feel connected to each other, to their communities, to create that sense of togetherness is really, the goal of community well-being and the conversations around that.
How many countries are you dealing with here?
Over 55 countries now, yeah, and we continue to grow, so you never know.
I have to imagine you rely pretty heavily on employee feedback.
We
For-
do. We do. We have a lot of different ways to gather feedback from our employees. One of the biggest ways is we do an annual all team member survey that goes out, in the summer of each year, and it asks a series of questions about various aspects of our organization. But we do have a portion in there about wellness specifically, where we can ask about, do the programs that we provide through our wellness offerings support the needs of you and your family? And so we can benchmark that year over year to see where we may be missing the mark, where we may have room for improvement. And then we get a lot of anecdotal feedback through that as well. Everything's confidential, so we don't, always know where it's coming from, which part of the world it's coming from, but kind of aggregating all of those pieces of feedback together can help us, poke holes in our strategy and see where we may have gaps. We also, get anecdotal feedback through our team members on social media channels. We have some internal social media platforms, and thankfully, our team members are really brave. They don't mind speaking up and saying if something doesn't work or they really like something, they share it out there in a very public way. And that's a great motivator for us to, stay connected to what our team members are experiencing and see how we can improve, what we can add, what we can do differently. So we have that, and then of course some of our vendors do anonymous surveys. If our team member was to connect to, let's say, an EAP vendor or our physical activity vendor, there's anonymous surveys they post, pulse survey type things throughout the year that gathers aggregated data on people's experience with individual program platforms as well. So we have a lot of different touch points that we can access to give us that more broad picture of what's working, what's not.
This is such a random question, but what do you spend most of your day doing? Like, I'm just curious, a day in the life of Allison Stark. What is the majority of your day doing? Is it analyzing data? Is it ideating for new programs? What does it look like, or is it different every day for you?
It's really different every day, and I'm grateful for that because it's never boring.
Yeah.
We have a pretty set schedule in terms of what we offer throughout the year, and every 3 months or so we offer a full global wellness or global campaign on a wellness topic. So, for example, yesterday we launched one of our biannual programs that we call Power of Prevention. And the Power of Prevention is a campaign that really encourages people um, to look at preventative health as a way to stay well. So, get your preventative screenings, access information on different chronic conditions. And so we launched, a whole campaign around, here's the top 4 chronic conditions globally right now, and here's what you might want to know about them. We bring the data behind them. It impacts, this gender primarily, this age group. And then we take it into, okay, you want to learn more about these? We'll attend this series of webinars where you can learn more about these different chronic conditions. Maybe you're having a barrier. Our team members are incredibly smart. They know that they should exercise, they know that they should eat well, but we all know that. And
Yeah.
what prevents us from doing that? There's common barriers in the way. We don't have the time, or we don't have the energy, we're burned out. And so we've, provided some training around some of those common barriers and how you might be able to overcome them. Rather than saying, please eat better, please take a walk. No, let's give actionable tips for people to be able to achieve those. And that's through training. It's also through a lot of the programs that we offer that team members can access virtually or in person, to help them support that. So, all of that to be said, that's the current campaign that's running now. And then in 3 months from now, we'll have the next one running. So, between the launch of each campaign, I'm working on the strategy and all the supporting pieces around the upcoming campaign. So, that's what our campaigns look like on an annual basis. But we also have day-to-day program management requirements. We have a lot of vendors in place that support our wellness programs. And so, having those vendor partnerships, working with them on what's coming up, what might we want to promote, what's the communication strategy, how can we boost utilization or engagement. And then probably my most fun part of the day is just getting to work with team members. I mentioned that we have a social media platform where team members can reach out for help, ask questions about our wellness programs, share success stories. And so I get to stay on top of all of that and engage with, people real time that are tapping into our programs.
Well, I think that piece is one of the most crucial parts of all of this. And from my experiences and what I've seen out there, is that there is a lot of prevention talk. There's a lot of education that goes on in many organizations. It's the lack of follow through or access to really follow up on what they've been educated on, or access the help that they need, has been the big issue. And so it sounds like you're educating, but you're also giving them the space and giving them the tools to also achieve the goals that you're educating them on trying to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can do that at this campaign level, but on a corporate level as well, we really reinforce that. We have um, a program we call Wellness Fridays at HPE, where team members get a full Friday off 4 times a year to focus on whatever it is that wellness means to them. So that could be, going on a hike, doing something with your family, going for a spa day, volunteering in your community. There's no restrictions around how you can use that time. And we also are doing a great initiative right now where all people leaders are meeting with their individual teams and establishing what we call team norms, which is how is the best way that we can work together within our individual team. And we've been asked to think through several different components of team norms, and one of them is wellness. And so when we look at wellness, some of the suggested things are like, block out time to take your lunch break. So no, put it on your calendar so no one's interrupting you. So you can actually step away and eat. Or maybe no meetings Fridays so that you can actually have time to get caught up in a calm manner, prepare and reset for the following week. Take walking meetings. These are just ideas, but each manager gets together with their team and establishes these wellness type norms that fit their exact team, no matter where they're located. A lot of us have global teams, different time zones.
Yeah.
Set those boundaries and really champion each other to make time to be well. And so that's going on live now as we speak, and I can't wait to see how that has a broader impact on people really being able to disconnect and take care of themselves.
It's so funny. It's so simple to take care of ourselves. And it's such those little changes and those things that you've just mentioned are almost common sense, right?
Mm.
But it is so difficult for us to do during the day. I mean, blocking off an hour to have lunch, or a half hour for lunch where you can just focus on eating and not worry about work. it's so simple and it makes so much sense that we all need that break.
Mhm.
But I find that so few of us actually do this, including myself. I mean, I was smiling while you were saying these things because I'm like, yeah, I probably could listen to all of this and actually implement some of this stuff in my life to make my life a little bit more balanced. I love to do to schedule my full day all the way through, and then by 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, go, oh crap, I forgot to eat today, and it's it's just common practice for me of saying like I'd rather just power through the day and I'll be fine, as opposed, and I'm ignoring my own wellness doing that.
Yeah.
So going across globally, I imagine, and I'm going to try to word this question correctly because it makes sense in my head. Let's see if I can get it out. I imagine because of the time zones and we're different cultures and everything, there's a bit of siloing that occurs where they have to sort of be autonomous in their wellness programs. At the same time, there's some global themes that go all the way across the wellness programming in terms of similarities that are almost like just basic human needs, and then they're adapted into that little silo depending on where these people are located in the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm not sure I fully get your question, so if I'm going the wrong direction with my
Right.
answer, just jump in.
I'm not sure I
Um,
fully get my question either.
you know, it's okay. So, when we look at global wellness offerings, these are consistent things that are available no matter where you're located. And some of them are not time specific. So, like if we look at we have a partnership with a vendor called Wellbeats. And if you think about Wellbeats is like Netflix for workouts. And so it's a platform that offers all sorts of on-demand workout videos for adults, for people that are beginners, for people that are marathon trainers, kids, families. There's just kind of like Netflix, something for everyone. And that's something that our team members can access whenever, wherever they're located on their time during workday, in the evenings, if they're traveling for business from their hotel, whatever it may be. So that's something that would be, consistently offered regardless of a silo. If you're looking at something more like a campaign, as I mentioned, the power of prevention, we have a global wrapper around that. We have, all the educational information that's available to all of our team members. We have associated webinars that correspond to the content within that campaign. And we make sure those are staggered so they're available in all time zones. So we offer them multiple times so that, somebody's not trying to join something in the middle of their night when they should be sleeping. And then, we also work with our regions and our countries to kind of correspond local offerings to our global campaigns. So, power prevention, one of the things that we heavily promote is getting your wellness checks done, based on your age, based on your gender. What should you be, getting in terms of an annual checkup or screening test or whatever? So we partner with our regions to say, hey, locally, what could you provide within your country, within your location to correspond to the power prevention campaign that's going on? And so lots of them will set up, on site screenings in their location, or, maybe have a speaker come in on a particular topic that ties to the campaign. And reach the team members one on one. So it's a hybrid approach for all of it, which follows the way we work. We work in a hybrid environment where team members can work remotely. They can also come to an office to collaborate, and so we try and follow that with our wellness approach too, is to give people access to um, on-demand support uh, via various platforms, but also to have options if they were to come into the office. Maybe there's a fitness center there that they could access, or a health clinic, or blood pressure machines, or whatever it may be. There's lots of variability there in what the countries offer too. Does that answer your question?
It actually does. So I think despite me asking it in a terrible way, you actually did a great job of interpreting what I was saying. And essentially what I was trying to ask, what I realized is what are the commonalities globally that you're addressing, and then what are the differences, like some of the bigger differences that you're trying to work on based on the culture or based on where you're targeting within the company. So
Yes. So our commonalities really are our pillars of our wellness program. So we want people to focus on physical health. We want to support their mental and emotional health. We want to help people, with their financial situations to improve those, to maintain those. That's a huge source of stress. So we want to
Mhm.
make sure there's wrappers there around that, and then community well-being as well. So those are the global themes that we focus on. And we make sure when we're communicating those themes that they are relevant to anyone who may be reading them. So let me give you an example. When we rolled out our mental health initiative, oh, 4 or 5 years ago, one of the, it hadn't been a large focus beyond offering an employee assistance program at that time. And we really wanted to double down on that and actually create a culture where it's okay if you need help. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to talk about challenges that are stigmatized. You're supported. There's no stigma here. Let's just approach this topic. And given that mental health specifically is so stigmatized and can be extremely stigmatized in other countries outside the US, where it's just you are told growing up, you never speak of these things outside your family. You would never go to a therapist. Like that would be craziness in some countries. We knew we had to make sure we were being sensitive to all those different viewpoints. And so before we launched the initiative, we did do a focus group, a very detailed global focus group where we were able to test wording, test imagery, even test taglines, and really get some feedback from each of our regions and countries saying, this would be really offensive or this would not resonate. And what was surprising about it is we went into it with a lot of what we thought were, oh, this is it. This is the good idea. This is, of course, this is going to resonate.
Right.
And in reality, you hear, wow, a picture of two people holding hands is not in the US, that's kindness, love, warmth. Um, in other countries, it's not. That could be considered kind of um, I keep saying the word offensive, but just not appealing.
Right.
And so we had to, you know, switch on what was a very basic assumption that everyone feels this way about this type of imagery. So when we take all that into consideration when we're launching something globally, but then we also provide our countries with templates, so to speak, that they can customize and put in their own wording or their own specific local offering without losing the overall global message of why this initiative is important and the supporting global resources around it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's going back to the mental health piece and the stigma, it's almost why I've focused so much of the work that we've done on helping to improve mental health in the workplace or educate people on the idea of substance use disorders in the workplace, how they show up, and how to address them, and how to also create a culture that allows for people to come forward and sort of overcome that stigma. And then we're big believers in education is where you start with that, and then you work out from there, and it relies on leadership and yada yada yada. But the main reason we focus mostly on US based companies is because it's there's still a lot of catching up to do
Mhm.
with some other countries, which is no fault to them. It's just America seems to be a little bit more forward thinking, and a couple other countries too, of course, but a little bit more forward thinking or more accepting of people's mental health struggles and receiving help for those. And I think, honestly, if we can say there's one good thing from the COVID-19 pandemic, it really shed light on people's needs to take care of their mental health a whole lot more. So,
And I
no,
think, to that point, when we looked at, how we were going to approach this global program of mental health, we knew going into it that it was going to be a marathon, not a sprint. And we were very intentional when we set our goals around what are we hoping to achieve over time by introducing and really making a robust offering around mental health. And um, our initial small goal was just to begin to reduce the stigma, right? Just to approach the conversation as leaders, make sure we were modeling that behavior and having those conversations so that over time, our team members might jump in. We didn't know what to expect, but over
Mhm.
the last 4 or 5 years, it's pretty incredible to see that when we first launched the campaign, there's a little bit of chatter. And I say campaign, it's an ongoing program. This is one of the foundations of our global wellness program. But over time, you can see people have become more and more willing to share their struggles on our internal social media platforms, to watch for others who might be sharing and chime in and say, "Oh, I've been through this. Here's what I did." I mean, we see that increasing little by little across the globe over time. And that's really what we want to do. Wellness is very key to our culture at HPE. And we need to be able to have those difficult conversations. We need people to feel psychologically safe when they show up at work so they can be their true, authentic self. And so, it takes time, very small baby steps, but
Yeah.
the consistency matters. We keep doubling down on why this is so important and how we're here to support you. And, you know, we're seeing more and more engagement over time. So just if anyone's in this situation, it's definitely not one and done. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And be really patient. It will come as long as you're providing a place where people feel safe to bring it up.
Yeah, I mean, I first of all love everything you just said. It just gave me like the happy feeling. Do a little happy dance for anybody who's listening on the podcast version of this.
Good job,
Um,
Blake.
yeah. So yes, I think that that is all incredible, and I think the topic of every conversation, if I'm not mistaken, that I've had so far each week has been about creating that psychological safety and the importance of it. And in my head, as you've been speaking this whole time, I can understand and see how you guys have worked tirelessly to create that sense of safety. And you just, the cherry on top was when you mentioned how the employees are reacting to it, where they're supporting each other, when they're sharing personal struggles that they're going through and jumping in to support one another without feeling like they're going to be judged or scared of what's going to happen to them. That is such a crucial and key piece to that, to running and operating an organization, especially today in 2023.
Yeah.
People need to feel that. So I'm curious, on the other end of it, and sort of the long-term broad stroke end of this, what types of benefits have you seen to the organization overall by having this wellness program in place?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. And I get this a lot when I'm asked about, how do you measure the effectiveness of your wellness program? People are always like, what kind of stats do you see in absenteeism or presenteeism? What kind of ROI do you get on your programs? We get those questions all the time because a lot of leaders, rightfully so, want to measure their investment in wellness.
Sure.
And it is a very key initiative at HPE, and we do invest in our employees. And I always like to say it's a very hard question to answer, but a lot of what we do it because it's the right thing to do, right? We're not as focused on what's the return on investment. We don't always have access to presenteeism or absenteeism data because we don't ask people to tell us why they're here or not here. And, even beyond that, there's so much of what falls in the wellness space that is, as we talked about, very stigmatized, and people want their confidentiality maintained. And so for that reason, we don't publicize a lot of our data and where we're, you know, exceeding milestones because we don't want our team members to think at any point in time that their confidentiality is compromised, that they're being
Right.
called out or they're being noticed or whatever for actually engaging in a wellness resource.
Right, like they're being judged based on how
Yeah,
often they use something or how their mental health is. Right, that makes a lot of sense.
exactly. Yes. So everything we do is in an aggregate data, aggregate level. And I think the way we can see that it's making a difference beyond what I mentioned of, groups forming on social media talking about various struggles, people being willing to do testimonial videos for us. That would have never happened 5 years ago about a different program, how it impacted them, how it helped their family members. We get a lot of anecdotal offline feedback, that we keep confidential. Somebody might email me and say, "Hey, I just checked this out for the first time, and you have no idea how it helped me with what I was going through." Those kind of things they give me chills when I get those
Yeah,
emails because um, we don't always know if and when we're making a difference because a lot of the stuff that we're helping people with they don't want to talk about publicly, and that is completely fine. But when we do get those emails like, "Hey, my kid was struggling with this, and because of that, like, I thought they were going to lose their life, and you helped us." We've gotten emails that impactful that make every single thing we do worth it. And those are just the things we're hearing about. I know there's more that we never hear about,
of course.
but we're here. Our team members know we're here, that we have this wellness program in place to really support them and their families. And we keep talking about it. We're not going to stop talking about it. So it's there. People
It's
take
funny.
advantage of it.
You almost went into my next question there, and one thing I just will comment on what you said is that that validation piece is it's what feeds people like you and me. It's what feeds us and lets us know that we are making a difference in people's lives, because sometimes the work that you're doing in particular can be a very thankless job. And like you said, you're probably helping way more people that are reaching out to you about and thanking you for the work that you're doing. But there can be times where it can be months before in between emails like that.
Yeah.
But those are what refill our tank and what fuel us to know that we're on the right path, that we're doing the right thing. And it speaks to the importance of validation, of validating each other. And there's always this topic that comes up in leadership theories of that a leader should constantly be recognizing an employee for the work that they're doing. And I agree with that. But it's also important that employees recognize each other's work that they're doing, and make sure to compliment and let them know that you've noticed what they're doing and you appreciate the work that they're doing. It can't just all come from the top. We all have to compliment each other and support each other through this, through everything that we're doing, so that we know that we're on the right track and we feel good about what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. And I would go as far to say that just HR roles in general can sometimes be a thankless job. And HR and within an organization, right, is we're the caretakers, right? We're there to make sure our employees feel safe, that they feel supported, that they have access to the benefits that they need, that any of their, employee type issues are resolved effectively. And, we sometimes as HR, members of HR teams forget that we need to take care of ourselves too. And so those things do refill our tank when we get peer feedback or feedback from somebody that's accessed one of our programs and it's helped them. That's great. But also, just as an HR community, I encourage people to, check in on your HR team members too. They're so busy taking care of their, employees as well as their families and their personal life that it helps to know that your peers have your back too and appreciate what you're doing and understand what you're doing, and give recognition in that way as well.
Yeah, the caretaker needs to be taken care of
Hmm.
as well.
Yeah, we need
It's-
that reminder sometimes. We all need permission sometimes, which is unfortunate, but I've learned that over the years that um, we just like you said earlier, it's, some of these things are common sense. They're no-brainers that we need to take care of ourselves and do, practice healthy behaviors. But sometimes it's just that little nudge from a peer, from your leader saying, "Hey, have you taken any time for yourself? Hey, I noticed you haven't taken any PTO in a while. Why don't you put something on the calendar or please step away for lunch?" And once you kind of get that nudge, you're like, "Yeah, I knew that already, but now I can actually do it."
yeah,
And then having our leaders model that behavior as well, because we definitely can't ask our team members to take care of themselves if us as leaders aren't doing the same thing. If we're saying, take a walking meeting or block time on your calendar to do this, or take time off to disconnect. And then us as leaders are emailing them while they're off or texting them while they're off. We're not modeling any of that behavior. And it makes people hesitant to take care of themselves. So we have to really be mindful of that as well.
Yeah, no, it's our organization, Next Level, obviously very much smaller scale, but that is something that we have to constantly remind ourselves to do as well. And there's times where we'll call it like a forced day off, where it's like, hey, Amanda, you're going to take off today, and you're not going to don't pick up the phone. We already booked you a hotel at this place. You're doing a staycation. Go do this. Just you need a day off. And the same thing comes right back at me, honestly, often. I'm like, take the rest of the day off. Stop it. You need to do this, do that. It's just we need each other's support. And as much as we can tell other people to take how to take care of themselves, we do, I think, as natural caretakers, sometimes forget to do it for ourselves. And we need the support of the people around us
Yeah,
to also make the
absolutely.
same reminders that, hey, you haven't done this. You keep talking about other people doing it. You haven't done it. Go take 10 minutes to meditate. Go do this.
Yeah.
I love Sarah on our team she's our family and team manager. The text I'll get, have you meditated yet today? Have you meditated yet today? Over and over again. And it's like, no, I get it. You're right. I got to go do it.
It's so important. Yes, I want to get on our text distribution list because I love meditating, and oftentimes I will go and meditate for 5 minutes between calls just to reset and breathe for a minute. And that has been something I've really been intentional about since COVID started and has made a huge difference. But there's lulls where I'll forget for a couple of weeks and I'll start feeling off, and I'm like, what am I missing here? Oh, I need to get on my meditation app, that kind of thing. So it's great to have people that hold you accountable.
Agreed. And we all need that. And it's not, it's not something that's intended to be aggressive, or holding accountable sometimes also gets a negative
Yeah.
connotation to it. And accountability is a good thing. And sometimes we need reminders to take care of ourselves, to breathe. You're going to be okay. You don't have to do all this right now. This can be done a week from now. It's fine. We need those reminders at times. And it's often from the people who are closest to us within our teams that can do that.
Exactly.
It's funny about meditation. I go through spurts of it where I'm killing it. I'm floating above the bed, like I feel amazing doing it. I went on a meditation retreat to Costa Rica and meditated and did yoga for 4 days, and it was awesome. And I'm on this hot streak, and I'm literally feeling amazing. And then as soon as I feel amazing, I'm like, I just get caught up in work and stop doing it. Then feel like crap, and then convince myself that meditating is not going to help because, how could it help me? What, it wasn't doing anything. Look how I feel right now. And it's like, well, because you stopped, buddy.
Yep.
Get back
And
at it.
that's funny that you mentioned that because, in the media a lot right now, there's this, I want to say it's a buzzword, but it's not really a buzzword. It's very needed, but there's a term circulating out there called proactive rest. And I don't know if you've looked at any of this yet, but really the idea behind proactive rest is, many of us wait until the point that we're burned out before we listen to our bodies and do that self care, take the time we need. And it's kind of a movement to really think about taking care of yourself in a different way. So take those small incremental steps before you ever reach burnout to prevent that. And that looks differently for everyone because rest for some people may be physical activity, giving their brain a break from what they're focusing on at work. Some
Practice
people, it's
this.
meditation, right?
Right.
There's so many different ways to quote unquote rest. And so that's something we've started talking about here at HP recently is that idea of proactive rest, like get ahead of that burnout, never reach burnout if you can start doing these things. But you're right, when you feel good, sometimes it's hard to do those practices or remind yourself that that's what was keeping you feeling good in the first place. And I mean, preventative mental health care is another one of
Oh,
those.
yeah.
Like, why go to therapy just when things are crazy? Why reach out to your support network only when things are bad?
Right.
Stay connected to those types of resources, your employee assistance program, whatever it may be in the interim, so that you just maintain a little bit more balance that way.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And logically, it is, people don't recognize how much harder it is once you are already burnt out to kind of climb out of that hole.
Yeah.
and hit the reset. And if you can take care of yourself on a regular basis and schedule those times off or do whatever you have to do to make sure that you have a healthy and balanced practice of self-care, you can prevent that process. But once you actually get burnt out, then you have to deal with all the fallout of that, all the issues that come up. And it's a really hard hole to climb out of. So the preventative stuff that you're talking about, and you've been talking about almost this whole time, is so important for people to recognize that it's necessary. And I love how you guys are constantly reminding employees of that you're constantly reminding them to take care of themselves. And
Yeah.
one of the things that we teach organizations and families is the scheduled check-in. So having whoever the team lead is, or who the manager or the boss, the leader, whomever it is, scheduling check-ins, whether it's every week, every other week, monthly, whatever it is, with an employee or a loved one, to say, hey, I just wanted to check in. What are your asking specific questions?
Mhm.
Are you taking care of yourself? What's your burnout level looking like? What do you do to blow off steam? How's your workload right now? Is it too difficult for you? What's the thing that's frustrating you the most right now? You're really just trying to ask those specific, direct questions that maybe a person is afraid to come forward with, or not recognizing their feeling at the moment. But
Yeah.
having them to do that to me, it's so important. You don't realize that you are burnt out or that you're heading down a path of burnout until someone asks you and you have a chance to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great point. And I actually have a question for you about that. So that's something, every quarter we have formal career conversations with everyone on our team as a people leader. We get to meet with our team members and have a really kind of guided conversation. It's not scripted, but it's like, here's the things we want you to focus on during this formal conversation, so to
Yeah.
speak. And this quarter, one of the conversation topics was around wellness, and really the ideas we wanted people leaders to check in with all of their team members on, how are you really doing? Not just how are you? I'm fine. No, how are you really doing? What can I do to support your wellness? Whatever that may look like for that individual, and it's going to be different for everybody. How can I better support you? And one of the interesting things, it's not surprising by any means, but one of the barriers that I see in that is some people leaders are scared to ask that question, because what if the team member answers something and they don't know what to say? What if they say, I am so burned out, I'm losing my mind, I have so much anxiety, I cry all day? You don't know what a team member is going to say and if they're willing to be vulnerable or not. But I think, managers are like, well, what do I do if I say that? And we're not expecting our team members to be clinicians or therapists or anything like that, but just to have that avenue to at least redirect them to, well, we have this wellness program. Here's some resources that might be available to you. So when you're training, how do you approach that when, someone's scared to ask the question because they don't know what to do with the answer?
It's a great question. And I'll share with you after this as well. On top of that question, I'll answer it. But we have a video that we made, basically like a 40-minute training, basically on this topic of just some simple tips and techniques, and also letting all the managers know upfront. For us has been very important that we are not expecting you to be a clinician.
Hmm.
What we are asking of you, though, is to learn just a couple different skills, of one, of scheduling this meeting, but two, learning active listening
Hmm.
that can be used in that meeting. So we're not asking you to be a clinician, but we want to teach you how to actively listen and respond and allow a person to feel heard, and then direct them to the appropriate resources.
Yeah.
So it's not about the manager or the leader trying to fix the employee's problem in that moment. It's about validation in that moment, letting them know it's okay they shared that, and then passing them over to the appropriate resources, making sure they're educated on that, and even maybe guiding them or walking them to that, or introducing them to those resources as well, so that they know their manager cares enough to follow through on what they've heard.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's great.
Sort of a
Love
broad
that.
stroke, but that's the approach that we've taken. And I think I'm a big believer in vulnerability begets vulnerability. And
Yes.
I do think it's okay also for a manager to share back. I understand what you're saying. I've been there. I've been burnt out. And HPE offers actually some pretty great mental health or some financial services that can really help you dig your way out of that hole. So would it be okay if I emailed the lead on the wellness department and see if we can get you out of this, and just going on from there.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's a great
But
way to approach it.
yeah, otherwise sometimes you'll see it get ignored out of fear of having that vulnerable conversation. And then there's a blow up that happens, or a fire,
Mhm.
or a breakdown, or people lead to substance use or extended long-term mental health concerns. And it just kind of snowballs.
Yeah,
So simple
definitely.
conversations and active listening to me are
Okay.
my favorites.
Great answer.
All right. So I don't want to keep you any longer. I have one last question for you. Do you love what you do?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I don't consider what I do work. I dream about it. I wake up excited to log in and meet with people every day, really help our team members. I'm constantly reading about everything in the wellness space to try and bring new and fresh ideas to our employees. I am so grateful to do the job I do. I never thought it was possible to love a job until I had this job, and I'm sold.
Awesome. No, I thank you so much for educating me on this. And as I've experienced in the last 4 of these Workplace Wanderer series, the passion is what is just so inspiring to me. And it just keeps me motivated in this direction. And going down a doctorate path is exhausting.
I can
And,
imagine.
it's just getting started. And these types of conversations are what motivate me and inspire me to keep going. And people like you making change on this level and really following through on your word is so important to people like me to know that this exists and that it is possible and that people care enough to put this much time, effort, and passion into something. So I appreciate you sharing all of this with us and being so open and willing.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Blake, and congratulations on what you're doing and how you're bringing your expertise to organizations that may be new in this space and really need some coaching and advice on how to make this successful within their organizations. It's going to have a huge impact. I have no doubt it already has. So, congratulations on all the work you're doing, and good luck on the doctorate program.
Yeah, I'll keep you in the loop with that one.
Please do.
So if you guys want to find Allison Stark on LinkedIn, you just type in her name, Allison Stark, and you will find her on there. Thank you again for everybody who listens to this on the podcast, who watched us here on the LinkedIn Live. We appreciate all the feedback. I did see Amanda and Sarah from my team actually were commenting and asking questions. There's a lot of love coming your way for what you're saying from our team. And I think for us, it's been just a very validating conversation. So thank you. And I'm sorry, guys, I didn't get to your questions and topics. I just was so enthralled with this conversation. So I'm going to sign off now, but thank you again, Allison, and I will see you guys later.
Bye.